So just a reminder, ethos, pathos, logos. Who can remind me which one is ethos? An appeal to?
Um,
Oh, he's too excited. An appeal to what? I think that's the hardest one. We'll save that for the end. What is logos an appeal to? The easiest one. Jordan?
Logic.
Logic. Okay, pathos. Oh, emotion. And then finally, ethos. Last one.
Culture. Credibility.
Credibility. So remember, ethos is two things. One, are you qualified to be saying what you're saying? Like, do you know what you're talking about? And two, are you a good person? Do you have morals? Okay, that's ethos. Okay, so whenever we see things that appeal to ethos, we're going to highlight it yellow. Pathos will be in pink, and then logos will be in light blue. Choose light blue. Don't highlight anything in navy. I can't read it if you highlight it in navy. Okay, are we ready? Everyone here?
Yeah.
Am I waiting on anybody? Okay, here we go. It says 16 April 1963. My dear fellow clergymen, while confined here in the Birmingham City Jail, I came across your recent statement calling my present activities unwise and untimely. Seldom do I pause to answer criticism of my work and ideas. If I sought to answer all the criticisms that crossed my desk, my secretaries would have little time for anything other than such correspondence in the course of the day, and I would have no time for constructive work. But since I feel that you are men of genuine goodwill, and that your criticisms are sincerely set forth, I want to try to answer your statement in what I hope will be patient and reasonable terms. All right, so let's look at number one first. It says underline details that suggest MLK respects the men who have criticized him and or wants to keep a friendly relationship with them. Okay, Henry, what do you think?
I know one of them.
All right, let's see it.
The last sentence, but since I feel that, yeah.
Yeah, I feel that you are men of genuine goodwill. Good.
Oh, so not the whole sentence. Good.
We're just gonna do that part for now.
Okay.
Okay, what about just like the opening salutation? Again, he's not opening this letter, hey jerks, hey losers, right? These guys just criticized him. What shows respect in his opening? Henry?
While confided here.
Oh, in the opening.
Oh, in the pathos?
It, what word in the opening greeting? Jordan?
Hello.
More than that.
Dear fellow.
Yeah, dear fellow. Okay.
Oh, not hello.
Again, what do you think these would best appeal to? He's saying, like, let's be civil. I don't want us to start a fight. I want us to have an open dialogue. I don't want this to get ugly. What do you think this would best appeal to? And again, sometimes things can appeal to more than one.
Logos, and I think pathos also.
Someone help him out. What do we think? He's like, I want to have an open dialogue. I do not want this to get out of control. I want this to be very peaceful.
Pathos.
It could be pathos. What else could it be?
Logos.
Remember, logos are going to be like facts, statistics, things that have happened. What else do you think? We're down to one. Ethos, right? Again, just because he's trying to keep things peaceful, right? Like that shows what kind of guy he is. He's a moral guy. Okay. Again, it could also be pathos on this, but we can only highlight one. Okay, a rule of two is a literary technique, a rhetorical technique that people use. Like, you are smart and funny, right? It's just two things grouped together like that. That's all it is. The reason people use rule of twos and rules of threes is because psychologically, it's thought that your brain just remembers those things more than things listed in fours or fives or a singular thing. Okay, so that's why you use rule of two. Someone find me a rule of two. We have two of them in this paragraph. Jordan, what do you see?
Wise and untimely.
Very good. You call my present activities unwise and untimely. So we're going to bold that. So you can, again, do Control B on your keyboard, or you can come up and just hit your bold button. Either way. Okay. How do you think the clergymen were hoping that would make Martin Luther King Jr. feel when he read that? Like, oh, unwise and untimely. Ethan, what do you think?
Because like they would think that he could like wait, like they want to make him think that he could
Okay, they wanted him to like second guess himself in doing this and like start to feel insecure about his actions in Birmingham. Okay, because that's their intent. What would that best appeal to? They want him to feel something. Is that going to be ethos, pathos, or logos? Feelings. Pathos, right? So give that one a pink. Someone find me another rule of two. Someone other than Jordan. Someone new. Jordan, you're killing it though. Good job. Ethan, you've done a lot too. You take a break. I want this side of the room to look alive. A rule of two here. Okay. Patient in reasonable terms. Okay. That's a rule of two. And again, him just saying, let's be civil. What two things will this appeal to? Obviously pathos, but what else? Ethos. Good. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much fun are we having? All right, so Ethan's going to read excerpt number 2. Go ahead. Number 3 says, the clergymen claim that MLK is an outsider. That's their belief, okay? So in basic argumentation, you have claim, you have a counterclaim, and then you have a rebuttal. So he is refuting this. He's saying, like, actually, I'm not an outsider here. Why not? How does he prove that he's not an outsider here in just the most basic way? Karen? Yeah. He's president of the, what's it called, Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Right, they have organizational ties in the South. Okay. Okay, because Cameron pointed that one out, says he's serving as the president of this organization. Okay, he's the president. He's like the head honcho of this organization, right? So he is credible to be talking about this, right? So what would that appeal to? He knows what he's talking about. Okay, it is a fact, right? He is the president, so that would be a fact. I would accept logos as long as you could argue that. But the reason he's showing it, like, he's the president, like he is the most qualified to be talking about these sorts of matters. Ethos, right? Let's highlight that in ethos. I would say ethos is a stronger one there. Find me though, because number, is it 4? Number 4 is asking for an appeal to logos. And again, technically that would be logos as well, but we can only highlight one thing. What's in very obvious logos? Ethan?
We have some 85
Yeah, like 85 organizations, right? That number, anytime you see numbers, it's going to be logos like that. Good. All right, your next one says, what does this underlined portion create an appeal to? Again, I would say there's 2 things here, okay? But we're going to look at what's the most important. Like, always think like an author and try to determine why is he or she using this, okay? So he says, right, they asked if we would help. We agreed upon it, right? We consented. And when the hour came, we lived up to our promise. So he's saying, like, we are people of our words. We are honest. We are truthful. We say we're going to do something, by golly, we're going to do it. What would that appeal to most? I think someone said it. It's like our character. Ethos, right? If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. Next. But more basically, I am in Birmingham because injustice is here. Just as the prophets of the 8th century BC left their villages and carried their "Thus said the Lord" far beyond the boundaries of their hometowns, and just as the Apostle Paul left his village of Tarsus and carried the gospel of Jesus Christ to the far corners of the Greco-Roman world, so am I compelled to carry the gospel of freedom beyond my own hometown. Like Paul, I must constantly respond to the Macedonian call for aid. Okay, loaded language. Those are just going to be words with super strong connotations. You guys remember the difference between denotation and connotation? Hopefully. Think home and house. Their denotations are both like a place in which you can live. Okay? How are the connotations of home and house different? What does home make you feel like?
It's where people are and not just.
What did you say? Yeah, like safe, comfortable. Like those are the feelings associated with home. Like house sounds much colder, right, than home. Yeah. So connotations are the feelings associated with words. So let's look at this word injustice. If we're talking about the feelings associated, what's it obviously going to appeal to? Feelings. Right? That's going to be a pathos. So let's look at injustice. Injustice. And then it's asking us, what does this word connote? Like what feelings or what ideas are associated with that word injustice? When you hear injustice, what do you think of?
Wrong.
What do you say?
Wrong.
Wrong. Good. What else? What else? If something is not just, it's not what?
Fair.
Fair, right. Unfair, I think of. And again, in this case, who's being treated unfairly? Martin Luther King Jr. and African Americans in general. Okay, let's look at number 7. We're looking at a biblical allusion. So remember, an allusion is just a reference to something. If we have a biblical allusion, what are we obviously referencing? The Bible. Okay, so it says, just as Apostle Paul left his village, right? This is all the allusion. You can say pathos here. How is MLK similar to Paul? Just as the Apostle Paul left his village of Tarsus and carried the gospel of Jesus Christ to the far corners of the Greco world, so am I compelled to carry the gospel of freedom beyond my hometown. In your own words, how are they similar? Say it. Yeah. But answer as a group first. Henry, what were you saying?
Would it be that he just wants to spread the word?
Yeah. And is like leaving Atlanta to do so, right? Is leaving his hometown to spread the word. In his case, about freedom and equality, okay? In Paul's case, words of Jesus Christ, okay? Oh my gosh. Town. Smart. Look at number 8. Why was it so smart for him to include this biblical allusion, or any biblical allusion really for that matter, in this particular letter? Anyone other than Henry have an idea? Think, who's his audience? You always want to keep your audience in mind. Who's he writing to, Henry?
The clergyman.
The clergyman, and they are what? Church. Yeah, they are church officials, right? Right? Would that have been persuasive at all if he was writing to like a devil worshiping group? No. You know what I mean? You have to know your audience. You have to know who you're talking to. For these church officials, right, the Bible is an authoritative text, right? That's something that they hold dear and think is important. So if he's comparing himself to one of their apostles, right, maybe he'll get them to understand where he's coming from. Okay? And then finally, number 9, what else is being used here? Like Paul. That's a simile. Remember, a simile is a comparison that uses what? Like or as. Great job. Go ahead. All right, Cameron's going to read excerpt 4. Go ahead. Okay, who can remind me what a metaphor is? Yeah, it's a comparison that does not use like or as. So we're supposed to underline that. I'm going to help you with this. We're tied in a single garment of destiny. Anytime you have figurative language like this, okay, when you're using poetic kind of language, that's going to be an appeal to pathos. Again, carefully kind of constructed words, appeals to pathos. Okay, what do you think he means by this? We're tied in a single garment of destiny. Again, they were criticizing him for coming in Birmingham, like, this isn't your town, why do you care, right? But what's he trying to say, Henry?
He's trying to say that whatever we do affects everyone.
Yeah.
Not just them.
Yeah, good. Like, this has nationwide effects, right? kind of like we're all in this together. We're U.S. citizens, so if someone is affecting someone from another state, we should care, right? We should be empathetic towards those things. Like if something bad was happening in Belleville West, I would hope you guys wouldn't be like, oh well, not us, right? He's saying like we're kind of all in this together as not only humans, but kind of more narrowly U.S. citizens, right? Like we like are representative as a whole, the United States of America. So if one thing bad's happening, that's going to ruin the reputation of our entire country. All right, Henry, read excerpt 5. Now we're looking at cause and effect. Cause and effect, as long as you're like using literal things, that's going to be an appeal to logical arguments. So it's an appeal to what?
Logos.
Logos. So we're going to highlight this in blue. I want you to look at the cause and effect, okay? The demonstrations taking place in Birmingham. That's the effect, okay? So that's half of it. What's causing the demonstration? Yeah, right here, the city's white power structure, okay? That's what's causing it. So again, the racism, okay? He's saying, okay, if you want the demonstrations to stop, if you don't like these protests, it's pretty darn easy, right? What do you have to do?
Change.
Change what?
Get rid of racism.
Yeah, get rid of the racism, right? Get rid of that white power structure that's making African Americans like finally stand up for their rights. Okay, let's look at this word deplore. This is an example of diction or loaded language. Remember, diction sounds like dictionary. That's just a fancy word for author's word choice. But again, this word's kind of loaded. What's deplore mean? Like, I deplore spiders.
Feel or express strong disapproval.
Yeah, like you hate it, right? He's saying you absolutely hate these demonstrations. Who's he talking to here? Not only the clergyman, but who do you think he's referencing? Who really hates these demonstrations? The what? The white people. Like, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you said, yeah. The white people are hating these demonstrations. Like, obviously, the racist white people, but these clergymen, like, they don't define themselves as racist. Like, they're like, oh, yeah, that mistreatment, that is wrong. You know what I mean? But they're also not anti-racist in the sense that they're not doing anything to try to stop the mistreatment from happening. Okay, so he's saying you hate these so much. Why do you think these? Let's look at the racist white people too, or even the clergymen, these people of power, right? Why do they hate the demonstrations so much? Like, why did that get under their skin so much? It's just a group of people saying, like, hey, this isn't fair. Why would that concern them so much? Why would that get under their skin so much? What might they be afraid of?
That they're gonna treat the white people as racist as they did the black people.
Okay, maybe they're afraid like they'll be called out for their behavior, right? No, like even in this time period, a lot of people don't want to be called a racist, right? What else?
Maybe the white people from the clergymen ask about like what they should do.
Yeah.
And the clergymen have nothing else to do because they already said they're not racist, but they help the white people against the African Americans and the racist.
Yeah, what do you think all these white people in power are afraid of? What are they afraid of if these demonstrations last, if people start listening and things start changing?
They might get hate and like.
Yeah, okay, they probably are a little bit afraid of like some backlash, okay? But at this point, especially, we're still in the 1960s. It's 1963. It's even more so today, white people are the ones with power, right? You know what I mean? Like they're not going to receive like the hate even close to what people are receiving today, right? It's things have progressed, not that much, right? But things have certainly progressed as far as that. Okay, these white people are afraid that they're going to have to give up some of their power, right? They're afraid that African Americans are going to start getting more right, and they're afraid, like, well, how's that going to affect me? You know what I mean? Like, they're like, yeah, I want you to be treated better as long as it doesn't affect me, right, negatively, and that's what they're concerned with. So it's a very selfish concern, okay? All right. Excerpt number 6, I'll go ahead and read. Who are they referring to? It says, right, we've African Americans tried to negotiate with white city leaders, but the latter refused. Who refused?
The government. Or,
Yeah. like the white leaders refused to negotiate. Okay, so how does King prove that the African Americans had no alternative? Right? The white people wouldn't negotiate. What do you think that appeals to? I would take two things.
Uh, I think logos.
Yeah, you can pick either. Okay. Again, so the white leaders refused to negotiate. Okay. That word injustice is here again. Based on this paragraph, this excerpt, what are some of the injustices in Birmingham? How are African Americans being grossly mistreated in Birmingham? Ethan, give me one.
They're segregated.
Okay. It's the most segregated city in the U.S., it says. What else? Ethan, keep going.
When I tried to sign dollars with police when I'm talking to them.
We've already answered that one, so we're going to hold on for there because there's a couple more. What else?
The bombings of the homes.
Yep. Bombings of homes and churches. Okay. What else?
Unfairness in courts.
Yeah, unfairness in courts. They're not getting like fair trials. Okay, so those are just three of the things. Obviously, in the background, there's a whole slew of things. Are you guys ready for excerpt 7? So ethos, remember, is credibility. So how in this paragraph does MLK remind us that the African Americans have been credible? They have done the right moral, ethical thing, whereas the white leaders have not. What was like the deal they made together? Yep.
They would take down racial signs.
Okay, so white people would take down racial signs as long as what? What would the African Americans stop doing if they removed the sign? Would stop protesting, right? Okay, so the African Americans stopped protesting. What did the white people do? Yeah, they didn't remove their signs. And if they did remove their signs, it was for a very like brief second. Like they removed it for a day, they removed it for a week, but then it was right back up. So how might we describe the white leaders there? They're unfair. They lied, right? You know what I mean? They did not hold up their end of the deal. We're looking for logos and pathos. So remember, logos, facts, pathos is emotion. So when I say humiliating racial signs, what would that appeal to? Pathos, good. What? Oh, we were the victims of a broken promise. We were victimized. Pathos, good. What about this one? A few signs were removed, but then they were returned. Logos, good guys. Keep that up for a second. All right, I'm going to chunk this one up a little bit. Excerpt 8. It says, as in so many past experiences, our hopes had been blasted and the shadow of deep disappointment settled upon us. Okay? This word blasted. This is a loaded word. This is an emotionally charged word. What connotations do you think of? Like, what comes to mind when you hear blast? Explosions, right? It's like kind of this violence. So again, not only emphasizing like just the absolute pain that African Americans are facing by the injustices, also reminding the reader of the violence, right, towards African Americans, like those bombings, etc. Okay. Anyone know what device is being used here? I'll take a couple. To be pathos again. The shadow of deep disappointment settled upon us. I'll take a metaphor. About deep disappointment. Just that repetition of the D sound. You guys remember that from last year? That one's alliteration. Okay, we have this darkness, this shadow color. So what might that be? What appeals to our senses? We can visualize that. Imagery, good. Okay, and again, this disappointment, this constant feeling led African Americans to what? They're tired of feeling this way. Protest, right? Good. Right, when it says, what did these feelings lead to? It led to the protest. Good. Okay, as I finish reading this section, I want you to consider why they chose this particular time. Okay, it says, we had no alternative except to prepare for direct action, whereby we would present our very bodies as a means of laying our case out before the conscience of local and national communities. Mindful of the difficulties involved, we decided to undertake a process of self-purification. We began a series of workshops on nonviolence, and we repeatedly asked ourselves, are you able to accept blows without retaliating? Are you able to endure the ordeal of jail? What do you think that appeals to? The idea that they're doing self-purification. They want to make sure that they'll remain nonviolent.
Wait, what was?
Yeah, well, that the idea of self-purification, to make sure they're as pure as possible, to make sure that they are not willing to retaliate to some of the brutality that they are sure enough going to face. We're going to keep this peaceful. We will not turn violent because we are good people. That's going to be what?
Oh, I was so confused about the question.
Woo! Ethos, right? That's going to be the credibility. But when he starts asking the rhetorical questions, right, that's going to be pathos. Okay, it says, we decided to schedule our direct action program for the Easter season, realizing that except for Christmas, this is the main shopping period of the year. Knowing that a strong economic withdrawal program would be the byproduct of direct action, we felt that this would be the best time to bring pressure to bear on the merchants for the needed change. Okay, they're doing this on Easter weekend. Why? Why did they choose Easter weekend for their protest? What are they hoping it will do?
Because people will be outside, they will look out.
Okay, more people are out, right? Maybe more people will see them. What else? Who are they hoping to affect?
The clergymen or religious. Oh no.
Okay, what else?
Children.
No.
Oh.
What do they say about this Easter weekend? Apart from Christmas, what? Yep.
Main period.
It's the main shopping time, right? So for these white business owners, right, this is an important time of year for them because this is where they make a lot of money. Okay. Protests are very much still a thing right now, right? Like the Galleria had a lot of protests relatively recently. When you see that on the news, is that the time you like get your bag and like, you know what, I think I'm going to Macy's right now? No, right? Like you're like, okay, maybe I'll wait till next weekend. Okay. That's what he's trying to affect. He's realizing these white people in power aren't just going to make these changes because they realize it's the right thing to do. Okay. He's realizing it. The only way we can get them to change is if it starts affecting them, right? They're selfish. They don't want to put in the effort to help anyone else, right? They care about themselves. So if it starts affecting their pocketbooks, then they might start to make some changes, right? So that's why they chose that time. Okay, excerpt 9. What point is he trying to make? Why direct action? Why sit-ins, marches, and so forth? Isn't negotiation a better path? What does Martin Luther King Jr. think about negotiation? Would he like to negotiate and not have to be on the streets protesting? Yeah. Okay, who's not willing to negotiate? The white people. So he's like, the white people refuse to negotiate. Now we have to do the protest, right? That's the reason why. So he's right saying that the white people refuse to negotiate. Again, the African Americans were forced to protest, right? This isn't what they wanted to do. They would have much rather negotiate, but it's because the white people refused that they had to. Okay, and they're hoping eventually with the protests, the white people get fed up with the protests that they'll be more willing to negotiate. We know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. Frankly, I have yet to engage in a direct action campaign that was well timed in the view of those who have not suffered unduly from the disease of segregation. For years now, I have heard this word wait. It rings in the ears of every Negro with piercing familiarity. This wait has almost always meant never. We must come to see with one of our distinguished jurists that justice too long delayed is justice denied. Okay, who's the oppressor? What group? The white people. Yeah. Specifically, the white people with power. Okay. I'm going to help you with this metaphor here. Remember, Trevor, I think you reminded us, right? A metaphor is a comparison that does not use like or as, okay? The disease of segregation. We're going to underline that. This is going to be a pathos. What connotations are associated with disease? What do you think of when you hear disease? Okay, like plague, okay. What else? Sick, grotesque, right? That's why he uses that word. He's trying to compare like disease. People have very like negative feelings towards that word to segregation to show just how awful and like tiring, right, segregation is. Okay, when white people say wait, like now's not a good time, why do they say that?
Because they don't want to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Like, ever.
They don't want to like ever deal with it. They don't want to give up their power like we talked about. It's almost like they're hoping like wait, like you do with a little kid sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, oh wait, we'll carve pumpkins in 30 minutes. If I were to say that to my nephew, I'm hoping he forgets about the pumpkins, right? Like I don't want to do the pumpkins and I'm hoping he forgets. It's almost like white people had that mindset, like maybe if we just keep saying wait, they'll eventually forget about it. But are they ever going to forget about these injustices? No, because like look at this word choice. When we hear wait, they say it's a piercing familiarity. When you hear a word pierce, what do you think of?
Like strong, like
Yeah, like something like shooting at you, right? Like it's painful. Like it's not something that you can just forget. It's not carving a pumpkin, right? It's not something minimal. It's something huge. It's their everyday basic right. Remember which juxtaposition? Those are our guides over there, right? You have contrasting things next to each other for emphasis, right? So like in the beginning example, speed lights versus horse and buggy, right? You have opposite things next to each other for comparison purposes. He's going to compare it when you're looking at 27, the financial situation of white people versus black people, okay? This one I want to talk to you about. It was kind of mentioned on your web quest. It says, when your middle name becomes boy, however old you are. He talked about like a situation with his father, like who was called boy, and he's like a 50-year-old man. And he stood up against that. He's like, I'm not a boy. What was that white person trying to do by calling his dad boy? Belittle him, right? Make him feel inferior. So keep that in mind. Imagery. Okay, this tiptoe stance. Someone's walking around like this. Why are they walking around like that? They're trying to be quiet, like they're scared of something. Good. 30, this is a metaphor. There comes a time when the cup of endurance runs over. So endurance is just like patience, right? These have been peaceful protests, peaceful protests, peaceful protests. But MLK's warning, like, and again, he doesn't condone this, but he's saying eventually, if things don't change, these protests are going to turn what? Violent, right? And that's kind of what he's warning with the cup of endurance. And then finally, you guys feel good with rule 2. Those are just two things chunked together. Okay, so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to do on your own. Ooh, 9 to do on your own. Okay, feeling good?